Liam Carter's life was a monotonous loop. Wake up, attend class, hang out with his small circle of friends, and then spend the late hours of the night scrolling through university application forms, trying to carve out a future for himself. Life on Earth in 2243 was more technologically advanced, sure, but for most humans, that didn't mean they were involved in the grand happenings of the cosmos. Earth, despite its technological progress, was still very much an afterthought in the grand scheme of the Galactic Union, a governing body that spanned thousands of star systems. Liam had never considered a future beyond Earth. How could he? Interstellar travel was mostly reserved for the elite diplomats, scientists, and occasionally the obscenely wealthy. So when the letter arrived, sealed with the insignia of the Galaxia Interstellar University, Liam naturally assumed it was a prank. It came on a bright morning, the sky still tinged with the pinkish hues of dawn. Liam had just come downstairs to find his mother sorting through the mail. She handed him the letter with a raised brow. "What kind of university is that?" she asked, her voice colored with suspicion. Liam stared at the unfamiliar emblem, a swirling galaxy surrounded by symbols he didn't recognize. It wasn't one of the Earth-based institutions he had applied to. That was for sure. The sleek, metallic envelope felt out of place in his hands, like it belonged in a science fiction movie rather than his small suburban kitchen. He chuckled and tore it open, expecting a joke from one of his friends, or maybe a clever marketing ploy from some obscure online institution. But what he found inside was no joke. Dear Liam Carter, we are pleased to inform you that your application to Galaxia Interstellar University has been accepted. Your exemplary records and unique qualities have qualified you for a full academic scholarship. You are invited to join us for orientation on the 15th cycle of Galaxia Prime. We look forward to your arrival in the Andromeda Quadrant. Warm regards, the Admissions Board, Galaxia Interstellar University. Liam blinked. He read the letter again, and again. He could feel his mother's eyes on him, waiting for an explanation. He wasn't sure what to say. Galaxia Interstellar University, he muttered, the words foreign on his tongue. This has to be some kind of mistake. His mother crossed her arms, clearly unimpressed. Are you sure it's not one of those spam applications? I've heard of some scam universities trying to trick kids into thinking they got into something big. Liam nodded absent-mindedly, but his eyes remained glued to the letter. Scam or not, something about this felt off, but in a way that intrigued him. He flipped the letter over, and a holographic map sprang to life, hovering just above the paper. It showed a destination far beyond Earth, beyond the Milky Way, even deep in the Andromeda Galaxy. He couldn't tear his eyes away. The weeks leading up to his departure were surreal. Once he confirmed that the letter was, indeed, legitimate, a cosmic fluke in the system, but legitimate, he faced the daunting task of explaining it to his parents. Unsurprisingly, they were skeptical. The idea of their son going off-world to attend university, mingling with aliens from species they had never even heard of, was beyond comprehension, but curiosity won out, as it often does. After a few emotional conversations, they reluctantly agreed. Besides, the full scholarship was too good to pass up. The days leading up to his departure blurred together, a mix of packing unfamiliar supplies and endless streams of paperwork. The Galactic Union required every Earthling traveling off-world to register with a lengthy set of regulations, most of which Liam barely understood. There was also an exhaustive medical checkup, ensuring he wouldn't carry any harmful Earth-based pathogens into the far reaches of space. Finally, the day arrived. Liam stood at the spaceport terminal, his meager luggage by his side. His mother gave him one last, tearful hug, her arms wrapped tightly around him, while his father clapped him on the shoulder, pride mixing with worry in his eyes. The moment felt like he was walking into a dream. His heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the massive transport ship that would take him to the Andromeda Quadrant. Its hull shimmered, reflecting the blue and white hues of Earth's atmosphere. It looked too large, too alien to be real. And yet, it was happening. The journey to Galaxia Interstellar University was overwhelming. The transport ship was like nothing Liam had ever seen. Inside, it was less like a plane or shuttle and more like walking into a vast, open hall, with multiple species moving around in a buzz of activity. Strange scents filled the air, spices, metallic undertones, something floral but unplaceable. The The passengers were a mix of creatures, some humanoid, others so far from anything Liam had seen that he couldn't stop staring. He found his seat, which adjusted automatically to his size, and strapped in as the ship rumbled to life. There was no countdown, no fanfare. One moment they were docked, and the next, they were hurtling through space, faster than light, heading toward the Andromeda Galaxy. Liam tried to sleep during the journey, but his mind wouldn't settle. Thoughts of what awaited him kept racing through his head. What kind of aliens would he meet? Would he be the only human? What if he didn't fit in? As the ship neared its destination, a soft voice echoed through the cabin, announcing their approach. Liam sat up, heart pounding in his chest. A sense of excitement mixed with anxiety coursed through him. And then, through the window, he saw a Galaxia Interstellar University. It wasn't just a campus. It was a floating city. The campus hovered above the surface of a planet Liam couldn't name, its buildings interconnected by pathways of light that pulsed with energy. Towering spires of crystal pierced the sky, while floating platforms carried students and faculty between various sections of the university. The skies above shifted colors with the time of day, soft pinks and purples during the morning hours, vibrant blues and golds by midday, and deep, velvety black dotted with stars during the night. As Liam disembarked, his senses were assaulted by a rush of alien sights, sounds, and smells. Everywhere he looked, there were students from different worlds, some with extra limbs, others with glowing skin, a few floating several inches off the ground. Languages he didn't recognize buzzed around him, mixing into an incomprehensible symphony of voices. His heart hammered in his chest, and for the first time since he had received the letter, he felt a pang of doubt. What was he doing here? He didn't belong. He was just a human, a normal, ordinary boy from Earth. First-time students, please gather at the orientation hub, a voice announced in Galactic Standard, the universal language of the Union. A holographic arrow materialized in the air, directing new arrivals toward a glowing platform in the center of the plaza. Liam followed the stream of students, trying to blend in, but he couldn't help but notice the curious glances being thrown his way. It didn't take long to realize why he was the only human. Liam's assigned guide was an AI, a sleek, humanoid figure with glowing blue eyes that flickered as it spoke. The guide droned on about the university's history, its illustrious alumni, and its vast academic offerings. The sheer scale of the university's resources was staggering. Over 10,000 species from across the universe had attended, each bringing their unique culture and knowledge to the collective learning experience. But what truly caught Liam's attention was a seemingly casual remark from the guide. And as you may know, Galaxia Interstellar University was traditionally an all-girls institution for most of its history, catering to the elite female scholars from across the cosmos. However, in recent cycles we have opened our doors to all genders from various species. You, Liam Carter, are the first human male to be accepted. Liam's breath caught in his throat. He had assumed he'd be one of a handful of humans, maybe scattered among the alien students. But the reality was far more unsettling. He was the first human ever, and the only male in a school filled with alien women. The AI guide didn't seem to notice Liam's shock, continuing its monologue as if it had just recited the most mundane fact in the galaxy. Liam, on the other hand, felt the weight of this new information settle heavily on his shoulders. He was not just an anomaly, he was an outright oddity. He barely registered the rest of the orientation, lost in thought as he trailed behind the group, his mind racing with the implications of being the only human male on an alien campus. How were the other students going to react? Would he be seen as some sort of curiosity, or worse, an intruder? And how was he supposed to fit in when he didn't even know the basics of their cultures? His fears were confirmed when later that evening he found himself in the cafeteria. Liam stood in line, staring at the food options in front of him, if you could even call it food. Hovering blobs of various colors, strange tendrils that wriggled on their own, and shimmering liquids that glowed faintly. There was nothing even remotely recognizable. He picked the least threatening option, a small green orb that vibrated slightly, and sat down at an empty table, feeling the eyes of curious onlookers on him. His stomach churned with anxiety as he poked at the orb, wondering if it was even edible for humans. Just as he was about to take a bite, a voice interrupted him. "You must be the human." Liam looked up to see a tall, reptilian alien standing across from him. Her scales shimmered under the cafeteria lights, reflecting hues of green and gold. Her eyes were narrow, sharp, and very much unimpressed. "Vixira," she said, introducing herself without waiting for a response. "Your roommate." She sat down without invitation, her movements graceful but predatory, like a cat stalking its prey. Liam gulped, unsure of what to say. "Welcome to Galaxia Interstellar University," Vixira said dryly, her lips curling into what might have been a smirk. "You're going to have a very interesting time here." And with that cryptic remark, Liam's adventure at Galaxia Interstellar University had truly begun. Liam Carter stood on the edge of Galaxia Interstellar University's sprawling campus, a lone human surrounded by the strange and the spectacular. Each breath filled his lungs with air that tasted faintly metallic, yet somehow clean. His mind whirled from the events of his first day, and he still hadn't fully grasped the reality of his situation. An all-alien, all-girls university. The sharp voice of his new roommate, Vixira, cut through his reverie. "Try to keep up." Human, her scales glinted in the flickering lights of the floating pathways, her predatory eyes studying him as if he were prey. "You don't want to get lost." Liam hastened his pace, his shoes tapping against the crystalline walkway that glowed faintly beneath their steps. "I've got it," he muttered, still unsure how to handle his abrupt, snarky roommate. Vixira rolled her eyes, a slow, deliberate movement that made her seem more reptilian. "We'll see." As they passed under an archway made of shifting lights, Liam felt a shiver crawl up his spine. The university was as much an art installation as it was an institution of higher learning architecture that defied physics, buildings that floated in clusters high above the ground, pathways of light and glass that twisted and reformed in real time. He was beginning to feel like an insect inside a cosmic machine. But there wasn't time to admire the scenery. He had classes to get to, and they weren't anything like what he had anticipated. His first class was a nightmare. Liam entered a vast hall that seemed far larger inside than its exterior suggested, a subtle distortion of space. Holographic diagrams swirled in midair, displaying concepts he could barely comprehend. The professor, a being of pure energy who shimmered like a mirage, spoke in crisp, clear galactic standard, though the content of her lecture was anything but clear. "Today we'll be covering the basics of quantum relativity in non-Euclidean space. Ensure your neural adapters are active," she announced, her voice devoid of any warmth or encouragement. Liam's stomach twisted. Neural adapters? He glanced at the students around him, all of them nonchalantly activating devices embedded in their skulls, eyes flickering as streams of data filled their minds. He panicked. His neural adapter was non-existent. Human brains didn't come pre-equipped with such tech. His heart raced as the room dimmed, and the lecture started. Complex equations and shapes appeared in the air, shifting faster than he could follow. He felt completely out of his depth. Desperately, Liam fumbled with his wrist communicator, trying to keep up by manually inputting notes, but his hands shook too much to type properly. Anxiety washed over him in waves as the reality of his situation hit hard. He was woefully unprepared for this place. There was no way a human like him could keep pace with these hyper-advanced species. By the end of the lecture, his mind was a mess of confusion and fear. The other students filed out of the hall, unbothered, while Liam sat frozen in his seat, feeling like he'd just been run over by a starship. Things didn't improve in the cafeteria. When Liam found himself faced with the alien food again, he hoped he might find something resembling an Earth meal, but all he saw were floating blobs, gelatinous cubes, and glowing liquids. His stomach growled in protest. Reluctantly, he grabbed a small, neon-green cube, unsure if it was food or some kind of biological anomaly. He sat alone, poking at it with his utensil, still reeling from the academic catastrophe of the morning. Just as he was about to give up and leave, a voice broke through his thoughts. "You look like someone who could use a hand." Liam glanced up to see Ariel, a student he vaguely remembered from the orientation. She had an ethereal, humanoid appearance, but her skin emitted a faint, almost hypnotic glow. Her eyes were soft, curious, her expression kind. Yeah, Liam stammered, grateful for any distraction from his green cube dilemma. "I'm still trying to figure out what's edible." Ariel smiled, a warm, radiant expression. "This might be a bit overwhelming. I'm guessing you don't have food like this on Earth." He chuckled nervously. "No, not exactly." Ariel sat beside him, reaching for one of the gelatinous cubes on his tray. "Here," she said, touching it briefly. It shifted color slightly under her touch. Now it should be safe for you. Liam stared, unsure of what to make of the fact that his food just changed because someone else touched it. But he was too hungry to argue, so he cautiously bit into the cube. To his surprise, it tasted sweet like a mixture of berries and something citrusy. He let out a sigh of relief. Thanks, he said, genuinely grateful. I didn't expect to get into this much trouble over food. Ariel laughed, her voice light and melodic. You're going to find a lot of things unexpected here. Her glowing eyes studied him for a moment. But if you need help adjusting, don't hesitate to ask. I know how it feels to be different. Liam nodded, comforted by her sincerity. For the first time that day, he didn't feel entirely alone. Over the next week, Liam tried to find his rhythm, but fitting in was proving difficult. His classes remained incomprehensible, and while Ariel was always willing to lend a hand, he couldn't rely on her for everything. Worse still, the eyes of curious students followed him wherever he went, whispers echoing behind his back. Being the only human and the only male in a sea of alien girls made him a perpetual spectacle. One afternoon, as Liam made his way across the floating campus bridge, he found himself flanked by Calexa, a tall, imposing alien who had become something of a campus legend. Her species, known for their warrior traditions, valued strength above all else. Calexa had initially approached him out of curiosity, but her interest quickly turned competitive. She saw Liam not as a peer, but as a challenge. Human, she barked, striding up beside him with confident, heavy footsteps. Her metallic armor clinked as she moved, and her sharp, golden eyes gleamed with intensity. You've yet to prove your worth. Liam tried to sidestep her, but she blocked his path. What do you mean? He asked, wary of her confrontational tone. Calexa smirked, folding her arms across her chest. In my culture, we value strength, combat prowess, and survival instinct. You've done nothing but stumble through your days here. Liam felt a surge of frustration. I'm trying to survive, he shot back. It's not easy being the only human on a planet full of. He caught himself before finishing that thought. Calexa's stare hardened, daring him to finish his sentence. Full of aliens, she finished for him. We are no more alien than you are human. Perhaps you are the alien here. Her words stung, but she wasn't wrong. I didn't mean it that way, he muttered. I'm just adjusting. Calexa tilted her head, a gleam of challenge in her eyes. Then adjust faster. You won't last long in this place if you can't keep up. Her hand shot out in a blur, grabbing his wrist before he could react. Let's see what you're made of. Before Liam could protest, she yanked him toward an empty training ground nearby, her grip firm yet oddly controlled. Alien students nearby watched with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. Calexa pulled 2 training staves from a nearby rack and tossed one to him. Fight me, she said, her voice daring, her posture ready. Liam stared at the staff in his hands, then back at Calexa. Fight you? I don't even know how to. Good, she interrupted, smirking. Then you'll learn. The next several minutes were a blur of movement, pain, and frustration. Calexa's staff moved with frightening speed, striking his arms, his legs, knocking him to the ground over and over. She didn't hit with full force, but it was enough to leave him bruised and sore. Each time he fell, she pulled him back up. Again, she demanded. By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting the campus in hues of gold and purple, Liam was breathless, aching, and humiliated. Calexa towered over him, her face inscrutable. Not bad, she said finally, as Liam wiped the sweat from his brow, trying to make sense of what just happened. Not bad, he gasped, incredulous. I didn't even land a hit. Calexa grinned, her teeth sharp and gleaming. But you didn't give up. For the first time, there was no mockery in her gaze, only a hint of respect. She extended a hand to help him up, and Liam, too tired to refuse, took it. Next time, try to hit harder, she said, her tone softer. Then, without another word, she turned and walked off, her form blending into the crowd of students that had gathered to watch. Liam stood there, breathing hard, his entire body sore. He wasn't sure if he had just made a friend or an enemy. As the days passed, Liam found himself slowly adapting to the chaotic rhythm of his new life. Ariel's gentle support, Vixira's sarcastic guidance, and even Calexa's brutal training sessions began to form the foundation of his survival strategy. His classes remained a struggle, but he learned to ask the right questions, to push through the confusion rather than drown in it. And yet, no matter how hard he tried to blend in, the eyes followed him. Whispers filled the air as he passed by. The other students weren't quite sure what to make of him. Some were friendly, others curious, and a few, like Calexa, seemed determined to test him. But something else was happening, something subtle, almost imperceptible. He noticed it during conversations with Ariel, or during one of Vixira's jabs, or even when Calexa handed him a training staff. They were starting to look at him differently, not just as the human boy out of place, but as something more. And that, in itself, was both exciting and terrifying. Liam Carter stood at the edge of the floating campus bridge, staring at the endless sky beneath him. The clouds below swirled in thick, mesmerizing patterns, while above him, faint stars flickered in the shifting atmosphere. He should have been captivated by the view, but a dull weight sat in his chest, gnawing at him. 2 weeks at Galaxia Interstellar University, and he still felt like he was trapped in some strange dream, where every gaze burned with curiosity or judgment. He shifted uneasily, tightening his grip on the strap of his bag. His first days at the university had been overwhelming, sure, but now it was worse. There was something else lurking beneath the surface, a more intense scrutiny. He had started noticing it in the way some of the alien girls looked at him. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something more, something he couldn't quite figure out. As he made his way through the main plaza, students parting around him like a river splitting against a rock, Liam tried to ignore the stares. But it was impossible not to feel the weight of their eyes. Trouble came to him that afternoon in the form of Dracira. Liam had barely settled into his seat in the Galactic History class when she entered the room, her presence like a cold wind sweeping through the air. She walked with the regal arrogance of her species, the Centauri, her silver skin gleaming under the artificial lights. Dracira made her way to the back of the class, but not before throwing a sharp, disdainful glance in his direction. It wasn't the first time she'd done this. From the moment they'd crossed paths, she had made it clear that she didn't believe he belonged here. The professor, a floating orb of light that pulsed in rhythmic patterns, began the lecture, but Liam couldn't concentrate. His mind kept wandering back to Dracira. He had heard whispers about her, how she led a group of traditionalists who were against any change in the university's structure, especially the inclusion of males and, worse, a human male. Liam tried to focus on the material. He scribbled notes into his datapad, but when he glanced down, the text had morphed into indecipherable alien symbols. He frowned, tapping at the screen, but nothing changed. Panic began to set in. This wasn't just a glitch. When class ended, Dracira passed by his desk, her lips curling into a sly smile. Having trouble, human, she asked, her voice a venomous whisper. Liam didn't answer. He didn't have to. The satisfaction in her eyes told him she knew exactly what was happening. That evening, Liam sat in the cafeteria, poking at his food. He stared at the small, glowing dish in front of him, a gelatinous cube that quivered when he touched it. His appetite had disappeared. All he could think about was the sabotage in his class. It wasn't the first time something had gone wrong. His dorm door had malfunctioned twice this week, locking him inside for hours, and his communication pad had mysteriously wiped itself clean. The constant pranks and minor sabotage were starting to wear him down. "Everything all right?" Liam looked up to see Ariel standing beside him, her luminescent skin glowing softly in the dim light of the dining hall. Her warm smile eased some of the tension in his chest. "Not really," Liam admitted, motioning to his untouched food. "It's been a rough day." Ariel sat down across from him, her ethereal presence calming. "You're not alone in this, you know. You've got friends." "Friends?" Liam raised an eyebrow. "I feel like more of a curiosity than anything else. Most of the time, I don't even know what people expect from me." Ariel's gaze softened, her glowing blue eyes full of empathy. "It's true that you stand out. You're the only human here, and that's bound to draw attention. But don't let the stares fool you. Some of us are genuinely curious, not hostile." Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not just the attention. Dracira's been making things difficult." Ariel's expression darkened. "Dracira, of course. She's sabotaging me, Ariel. My class notes, my dorm room, everything keeps malfunctioning or disappearing." I don't know what to do. Before Ariel could respond, a figure loomed over them. Talking about me, Dracira's voice was low and dangerous. She stood over their table, her silver skin glinting in the cafeteria's light. Her two lackeys, alien girls with equally menacing postures, stood just behind her. Liam tensed, his hands clenching into fists under the table. What do you want, Dracira? Dracira's smirk deepened. Just making sure you're aware of your place here. You see, Galaxia Interstellar University isn't a playground for humans. You're an anomaly, and anomalies tend to be corrected. Ariel rose to her feet, her glow intensifying slightly, a sign of her growing anger. Liam belongs here as much as anyone else. You don't get to decide who stays and who leaves. Dracira's gaze flicked to Ariel, cold and calculating. Maybe not. But the university has a way of sorting out the weak. Before Liam could respond, Dracira turned on her heel, her lackeys following her out of the cafeteria. That night, an anonymous message appeared on Liam's communication device. Be careful. They don't want you here. The message flashed for a moment before vanishing, leaving no trace of who had sent it. Liam stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. It had to be connected to the sabotage. But who was trying to warn him? And why? A sharp knock at his door snapped him out of his thoughts. Vixira, his sarcastic and sharp-witted reptilian roommate, stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame with her arms crossed. You look like you've seen a ghost, she remarked, her golden eyes narrowing as she studied him. Liam rubbed his temples. It's nothing, just more of the same. Vixira snorted. More of Dracira's games, you mean? Liam nodded. Yeah, and now I'm getting anonymous warnings. Someone told me to be careful, I have no idea what's going on. Vixira walked into the room, closing the door behind her. She leaned against the wall, crossing her arms again. You're stirring up more than you realize, human. Dracira's scared of you. Liam frowned. Scared? Of me? Vixira smirked. Not just you, what you represent. Change. She doesn't like anything that disrupts her little world. And you're a walking disruption. Great, Liam muttered. Just what I wanted to be. Vixira's eyes softened, just a little. Look, it's not going to stop unless you stand your ground. She's testing you, seeing if you'll back down. If you want to stay here, you'll need to push back. Liam sat down on his bed, sighing heavily. I don't even know where to start. Before Vixira could respond, a second knock sounded at the door. This time it was Calexa. We need to talk, Calexa said, her voice low and urgent. She glanced at Vixira, then back to Liam. It's important. Liam blinked, confused. About what? Calexa stepped inside, her tall frame blocking part of the doorway. Not here. Follow me. Vixira raised an eyebrow but said nothing as Calexa led Liam out of the dorm and down the dimly lit corridors of the university. Calexa didn't say a word until they reached the training grounds, a vast arena that floated above the campus, suspended by energy beams. The arena was empty, the soft hum of the energy fields the only sound. Calexa stopped in the center, turning to face Liam. You're in danger, she said bluntly. Liam blinked. Danger? From Dracira. Calexa nodded. It's more than just petty sabotage, Liam. Dracira and her followers. They see you as a threat. They think you're going to upset the balance here, and they won't stop until you're gone. Liam frowned. I'm just one person. Why do they care so much? Calexa's expression hardened. Because you represent change, and they hate change. Liam shook his head, frustration bubbling up inside him. So what do I do? Fight back. I'm not exactly equipped for this. Calexa studied him for a long moment before tossing him a training staff. Then let's change that. Liam caught the staff awkwardly, nearly fumbling it. He looked at Calexa, unsure of what to make of her sudden offer. You want to teach me how to fight? Calexa nodded. If you're going to survive here, you'll need to know how to defend yourself. Liam hesitated, but then tightened his grip on the staff. If Dracira wasn't going to stop, then maybe Vixira and Calexa were right. Maybe he needed to stop being passive and start fighting back. "All right," he said, determination settling in his chest. "Teach me." Liam had barely slept. The events of the past few days had left him on edge. Sabotage, veiled threats, anonymous warnings, everything was spiraling faster than he could grasp. Now, with Calexa stepping in to teach him how to fight, the stakes felt higher than ever. He stood at the edge of the university's floating training arena, staff in hand, his muscles tense. Calexa paced before him, her eyes sharp and calculating. There was no softness in her gaze, no sympathy. She was here to train him, to make him stronger. Her usual competitive smirk was gone, replaced with a serious focus that told him this wasn't just a game. "You need to be ready," Calexa said, her voice firm. "If Dracira or her group come for you again, you can't afford to be caught off guard." Liam nodded, gripping the staff more tightly. His palms were sweaty, nerves firing like electricity through his body. He wasn't a fighter. He wasn't even sure if this was the right approach. But Calexa's words from the night before echoed in his head. He couldn't survive here by staying passive. "Let's start," she said, her tone sharp, her stance shifting into something defensive but lethal. The first strike came faster than he expected. Calexa moved like lightning, her staff cutting through the air with a sharp whoosh. Liam barely had time to block it, his own staff shaking from the force of the blow. His arms burned from the impact, but he managed to stay on his feet. "Too slow," Calexa said, her voice devoid of mockery but full of challenge. "If I'd meant that strike, you'd already be down." Liam grimaced, tightening his stance. She wasn't giving him time to think, to catch his breath. This wasn't about learning technique slowly, it was about adapting, surviving. Calexa lunged again, and this time Liam managed to parry her attack. But the moment he thought he'd blocked it, she spun her staff around in a blur, sweeping his legs out from under him. He crashed to the ground, the wind knocked from his lungs. Again she commanded, not giving him a moment to rest. This time she allowed him a few seconds to get back on his feet, watching him with that calculating gaze. Liam's arms ached, his chest heaving, but he forced himself to stand tall. Calexa wasn't just teaching him to fight, she was testing him, measuring his resilience. He swung his staff at her, but she easily dodged. He tried again, putting more force behind it, but she sidestepped effortlessly, knocking him off balance once more. "You're thinking too much," Calexa said, as if the problem were simple. "In battle, there's no time to overthink. Act. Trust your instincts. You'll die if you hesitate." Liam gritted his teeth, pushing down the frustration building inside him. This was harder than he'd expected, and Calexa wasn't holding back. But he knew she was right, he couldn't keep overthinking every move. Calexa struck again, but this time, instead of bracing for it, Liam moved instinctively, dodging to the side. He swung his staff toward her legs. She blocked it easily, but there was a hint of approval in her eyes. "Better," she said. "Now keep moving." They sparred for what felt like hours, Calexa never slowing, never letting up. By the time she called for a break, Liam's muscles were screaming in protest, and his breath came in ragged gasps. He collapsed onto the floor of the arena, staring up at the sky above. It was shifting colors again, moving from deep blue to pale violet. A storm was brewing on the horizon. Calexa stood over him, her expression unreadable. "You'll need more than physical strength to survive here," she said. "You'll need to outthink them too." Liam didn't have the energy to respond, but her words hung heavy in the air. He knew she was right. The threats he faced weren't just physical, they were political, emotional, and deeply personal. Later that evening, as Liam limped back to his dorm room, a new message flashed across his communication device. This time, it wasn't anonymous. The insignia of the Galactic Council appeared on the screen, spinning slowly before fading into a simple text message. Liam Carter. Your presence is required at the Galactic Council's temporary office on campus. Tomorrow midday. This is not optional. Liam's heart skipped a beat. The Council? What could they possibly want with him? The message vanished, leaving only a blank screen behind. A heavy knot formed in his stomach. He had no choice but to go. The next day, Liam found himself standing in front of the Galactic Council's temporary office, a sleek building that seemed to shimmer in and out of reality. The structure was unlike anything else on campus, alien, even by Galaxia's standards. Energy pulsed through the walls in rhythmic waves, and the door slid open silently as he approached. Inside, the air felt cooler, almost sterile. Two towering beings in silver robes stood flanking the entrance, their faces obscured by shimmering masks. They gestured for him to enter a large circular chamber at the center of the building. Liam's pulse quickened as he stepped inside. The chamber was vast, its ceiling stretching so high he couldn't see where it ended. At the center of the room stood a single figure, tall and cloaked, their face hidden in the shadows of their hood. Liam couldn't tell what species they were, but their presence was commanding. "Liam Carter," the figure said, their voice resonating with a strange, almost metallic quality. "Do you know why you're here?" Liam shook his head. "No," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I don't." The figure paused, as if studying him, though their face remained obscured. "Your presence here is not by accident. There are forces at play, both seen and unseen, that are deeply interested in your time at Galaxia Interstellar University." Liam's heart pounded in his chest. "Forces? What do you mean?" The figure stepped closer, the air around them shimmering faintly. "The Galactic Council has been watching you. There is something about your presence, something different." Liam blinked. "Different how?" The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, they raised a hand, and the walls around them lit up with holographic images. Liam saw himself, in various moments talking to Ariel, sparring with Calexa, walking through the halls of the university. Every movement he'd made since arriving on campus seemed to be documented. "We have observed your interactions with the students," the figure said, their voice almost reverent. "And we've noticed something curious. The way they respond to you, the way their behavior shifts around you is unusual." Liam frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'm just trying to get by here." "Exactly," the figure replied. "And yet, your presence has created ripples that we believe could become waves." Liam's mouth went dry. "What kind of waves?" The figure stepped even closer, their towering form almost intimidating. "There is something about humans, something we do not fully understand. The emotional intensity of your species. It affects others more than you realize. We believe that your interactions with certain individuals on this campus are creating bonds that could influence intergalactic relations." Liam felt like the air had been knocked out of him. "You're saying I'm some kind of experiment?" The figure paused again. "Not an experiment. An opportunity. We want to see how far these ripples will go, and we want you to cooperate." Liam's head spun. "And if I don't?" The figure's voice darkened. "You misunderstand. This is not a request. You will cooperate, or the consequences will extend far beyond this university." A cold chill ran down Liam's spine. He didn't have a choice. The figure waved their hand, and the holographic images disappeared. "You will return to your life on campus. But know this, we are always watching. Every action you take from now on will be monitored. Do not deviate from your path." Liam nodded, his throat tight. He didn't know what to say, didn't know how to respond to the weight of what had just been dropped on him. "Go," the figure said, their voice echoing through the chamber. "And remember, your presence here matters more than you realize." Liam left the council's office feeling like he was walking through a fog. His mind raced, trying to process everything that had just happened. He wasn't just a student at this university anymore. He was being watched, manipulated, and tested in ways he hadn't even begun to understand. As he walked back to his dorm, the skies above the campus darkened. Storm clouds had rolled in, casting the university in shadow. The air was thick with the scent of rain, and Liam felt the first droplets begin to fall. He quickened his pace, his heart heavy. Whatever he thought his life at Galaxia was going to be, it had just become something much, much bigger. And much more dangerous. Liam leaned against the cool glass of the floating dormitory window, staring at the gathering storm. The skies above Galaxia Interstellar University churned in unnatural patterns, clouds thick and heavy, lit from within by flashes of violet and blue. Lightning flickered, illuminating the distant towers of the campus. But Liam's thoughts were too chaotic to appreciate the spectacle. Everything had changed after his meeting with the Galactic Council. They weren't just watching him, they were using him. They had hinted at something larger, something more dangerous, and now it felt like every choice he made was part of some hidden agenda. The weight of it all pressed down on him, making it hard to breathe. The council had been cryptic, but one thing was clear: his presence at the university had started a chain of events that was now out of his control. He was a pawn in their game, and no matter how much he wanted to walk away, he was trapped. The sudden knock at his door startled him out of his thoughts. Liam Vixira's voice, rough and impatient, came through. "I know you're in there." He sighed, crossing the room to open the door. Vixira, his sharp-tongued reptilian roommate, stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her golden eyes narrowing as she studied him. "You look like you just crawled out of a black hole," she remarked, her tail twitching slightly. "I feel like it," Liam muttered, rubbing his temples. Vixira stepped inside, her movements smooth and predatory. "Calexa told me you had a little chat with the council." She eyed him closely. "Want to explain why you look like they just handed you your death sentence?" Liam slumped down onto the edge of his bed, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "They told me I'm part of some bigger plan, that I'm making ripples in this place, changing things in ways they can't predict. But I don't even know what they want from me." Vixira snorted, her scaled lip curling into a half-smirk. Typical council. Always vague, always manipulating from the shadows. They love their games. Liam looked up, feeling the weight of her gaze. "I didn't sign up to be part of this. I just wanted to learn. Now I feel like I'm being pushed into something I don't understand." Vixira tilted her head, her eyes softening. "Just for a moment. None of us are ever asked. We get thrust into things and it's sink or swim. But here's the thing, human, you've been swimming. Dressira's tried to tear you down, the university looks at you like a sideshow, and yet you're still standing." Liam shook his head. "That doesn't make me special. I'm just trying to survive." Vixira's smirk returned. "Survival is what matters. You think the rest of us are doing anything different?" Liam stood up, pacing the room, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "But why me? Why am I the one they're watching? Why do they care about what I do here?" Vixira's eyes followed his movement, her voice lowering. "Because you represent something they can't control. You're human, you don't play by their rules. The council doesn't like variables. They like things to be predictable, and you, Liam Carter, are the opposite of predictable." Liam stopped, facing her, his chest tight with the weight of her words. "And what am I supposed to do?" Vixira shrugged, her golden eyes glinting. "You fight back, you don't let them control the narrative. You make your own path, and you remind them that they don't own you." Before Liam could respond, a sharp buzz from his communication device interrupted them. He glanced down at the screen, his stomach twisting as the message flashed. "Rogue faction attacking campus. All students are advised to evacuate immediately." The storm outside seemed to grow fiercer, as if the universe itself was reacting to the chaos. Liam's heart raced as he and Vixira bolted from the dorm, heading toward the campus's main evacuation point. The air was thick with tension, the usual hum of the university replaced by the blaring of alarms and the hurried footsteps of panicked students. Lightning flashed across the sky, casting the floating towers in eerie shadows. "Rogue faction," Liam asked breathlessly as they ran. "What do they want?" Vixira's eyes narrowed, her expression hardening. "They're extremists. They hate the idea of human integration into the Galactic Union. To them, you're a symbol of everything they're trying to stop." Liam's stomach churned. He'd been thrust into political turmoil far beyond anything he'd anticipated. The council had hinted at forces watching him, but he hadn't expected this an outright attack. As they turned the corner into the main square, they spotted Calexa, fully armored and already barking orders at a group of students. Her presence was commanding, her sharp eyes scanning the area for threats. "Calexa," Vixira called, waving her over. Calexa strode toward them, her face set in grim determination. "The rogue faction infiltrated during the storm. They've taken out several power nodes and are targeting specific students." Liam's breath caught in his throat. "Specific students? Like who?" Calexa's gaze locked onto his. "Like you." The first wave of attackers appeared from the shadows, their forms cloaked in dark, tactical armor. Energy weapons crackled in their hands, and the air buzzed with tension. Liam tightened his grip on the staff Calexa had given him during their training sessions. His palms were sweaty, his heart hammering in his chest, but he forced himself to focus. Calexa raised her voice, addressing the group of students that had gathered. "We hold this line. Protect each other. These militants are here to disrupt everything we've built. We don't let them win." Liam glanced at Ariel, who had appeared by his side, her usually soft glow now pulsing with a sharp intensity. Her eyes met his, and despite the fear in her gaze, she nodded, a silent promise that they would face this together. The first shot rang out a burst of energy that lit up the square in a flash of blue. Calexa moved first, a blur of motion as she intercepted the attack, her staff cutting through the air with deadly precision. Vixira was close behind, her movements swift and fluid, as if she had been waiting for this moment. Liam's body moved instinctively, everything Calexa had taught him coming to life in an instant. He parried a strike aimed at his head, the force of the impact vibrating up his arms. Another attacker lunged at him, but Liam dodged, swinging his staff in a wide arc that caught the rogue in the side, sending them sprawling to the ground. The air was thick with the hum of energy weapons and the shouts of battle. Around him, students fought back with everything they had: plasma shields flaring to life, alien abilities igniting the air with strange lights and sounds. But through the chaos, Liam spotted a figure standing on a raised platform, watching the battle unfold with cold detachment. Dracira. Her silver skin gleamed under the storm-lit sky, her eyes focused intently on him. For a moment the world seemed to slow. Their gazes locked, and Liam felt a surge of anger. She had always been a thorn in his side, always pushing him down, but now she was standing there, watching, waiting to see if he would fall. Something inside Liam snapped. He wasn't that boy anymore, the one who cowered in the shadows, unsure of his place. He had trained, he had fought, and he had survived. He wasn't going to let Dracira or anyone else control his fate. Without a second thought, Liam broke away from the fight, heading straight for Dracira. He could hear Calexa's voice shouting behind him, but the roar of the battle drowned out her words. All that mattered now was the confrontation ahead. Dracira didn't flinch as Liam approached. She stood tall, her silver skin reflecting the distant flashes of lightning, her expression unreadable. The two of them stood at opposite ends of the platform, the battle raging below, but in that moment, everything seemed to narrow to just the two of them. "You think you've grown stronger," Dracira said, her voice calm, cutting through the noise. "You've learned to fight. But that doesn't mean you understand what's really happening here." Liam tightened his grip on his staff, his knuckles white. "I'm done letting you and the council push me around." Dracira's eyes gleamed with something, perhaps amusement, perhaps something darker. "Do you really think you're free from their influence? The council has been watching you since the moment you arrived. You're part of their plan, whether you like it or not." Liam's heart raced, but he stood his ground. "I'm not playing by their rules anymore." For a brief moment, Dracira's expression shifted, a flicker of something almost resembling respect crossing her features. "You've changed, human," she said quietly. "Maybe more than I expected." With that, she drew her weapon, a long, slender blade that hummed with energy, and lunged toward him. Liam barely had time to react, raising his staff to block the strike. The force of her attack sent a shockwave through his body, but he held his ground. Their fight was fast, brutal, and relentless. Dracira moved with the precision of a warrior, every strike calculated and lethal. But Liam wasn't the same boy he had been weeks ago. He had trained with Calexa, learned from his mistakes, and fought alongside friends who believed in him. He parried another strike, then spun his staff in a wide arc, catching Dracira off balance. She stumbled, just for a moment, and in that moment Liam saw his opening. With a final swing, he knocked her weapon from her hand. It clattered to the ground, and for the first time, Dracira's composure cracked. She looked at him, breathing heavily, her silver skin glistening with sweat. "You've earned this," she said, her voice low but steady. "I underestimated you." Liam didn't respond. He didn't need to. In that moment, he knew he had finally proven himself not just to Dracira, but to everyone who had doubted him. The battle was over. The rogue faction had been driven back, their forces retreating into the storm. The campus was battered but standing, and the students who had fought alongside Liam were exhausted but victorious. Calexa approached him, her usual smirk replaced with a look of pride. "You fought well," she said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Looks like you're finally learning to stand on your own." Ariel appeared beside him, her glow returning to its usual soft warmth. "We couldn't have done it without you, Liam." Liam looked around at the aftermath of the battle, at the students who had fought, at the friendships he had forged. For the first time since arriving at Galaxia, he felt a true sense of belonging. He wasn't just a pawn in the Council's game, or an outsider trying to survive. He had proven his worth. As the storm began to clear, Liam knew that the road ahead would still be difficult. The Galactic Council might still have plans for him, and the threats to interspecies unity weren't over, but he wasn't afraid anymore. He had allies, he had strength, and most importantly, he had a choice. Liam Carter, the human boy who didn't belong, had become something more. And he wasn't going anywhere.